So Generation X needs to repent, and first of all, I'm sorry I've said some mean things. You know what? You're a product of your upbringing, aren't you? Like, if my dad called me fat and ugly and repulsive, why can't I call other people fat? It's only fair, right? Well, you're a Christian. I don't know. At the same time, I'm a fellow human being. I would not be as cruel as my father was, who called me a fucking whore because I dated an African Christian man at the age of 17. I'm telling you, my dad was anti-God, anti-religious, but because I was dating a Christian man from Africa, he called me a fucking whore. At that point, I stormed out of the house. I walked up the street and I realized there's nowhere to go. I have to come back home. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You can never escape. It's like the Hotel California. You can never, ever, ever leave. I actually warned a lady in a parking lot today. I said, watch out for these people, these proprietors. They're probably grooming gangs affiliated, because the culture is the same, whether it goes to England or whether it comes to America. They might be more cautious in America. I would never, ever, ever. But the thing is, folks, let's be honest and let's not be hypocrites. My mother got me my first job. She thought I didn't have enough gumption or something, because many times my dad would insult me and call me ugly and fat and lazy and stupid. And so my mom had to have the temerity to get a job for me, so I had to go work at a local place, that was just serving basically burgers, fries, and ice cream. Now it's a Taco Bell, so you know what I'm talking about. And I couldn't believe how promiscuous my fellow teenage girls were. I remember hearing that song, "She's just 16 years old, leave her alone," I said. And I thought, I was just 16 years old. I wish people wouldn't have been so mean to me. But there were girls that were actively marketing themselves, like marketing their bodies, working at that place. And I told my mother after I quit, and she said, "I'm really shocked." "I'm sure, Mother. I'm sure you're really shocked." Whatever. Because I couldn't talk to my mother. At some point, she just shut down. It's like the shutters went on her eyes, and anything that bothered me, it didn't matter. "Just wait, Erica, until you go to college and you become a member of the Ben Gesserit sorority from Dune." Yeah. My mother had me read Mommy Dearest when I was prepubescent. My mother was a crackpot. I don't know, like, she didn't smoke crack, but I think she was a very well-educated crackpot. She had me reading really sexually explicit romance novels when I was just a little girl, and she said, "No, it's very normal for people to have sexual fantasies. You should..." And I took her up on the offer, and that's how I spent a lot of time just having sexual fantasies, and only in the past few years have I quit that addiction. To be quite honest, we didn't have the Playboy channel or pornography in our house. Only briefly did I find the pornography. I sniffed it out just like a little sniffer dog after my mother had divorced my dad, and she's got like these soft porn magazines. Like, "When did you first have sex?" And then mother and her lover answered the questionnaire. The lover said he first had sex when he was 17, so it's really disgusting for a little girl to unearth these things about her own mother. So in case anybody thinks she's like this perfect saintly person, I mean, she wasn't. She was just human like all of us. But the thing was, she rejected her Catholic values when she had an affair with a coworker. And my mother was not like some sort of... I'm sorry, it's great if you're a waitress, but my mother was an educated person. Eventually she would go on to get at least a few master's degrees. She had an affair with a married man that had children. And I met the children, I met the wife, and I thought, we're all going to get along well. We're going to be one big happy family. And then it's like that song, You Dropped the Bomb on Me or something. Like, I can't believe, like, all this dalliance, which I tried to make light of when my father would question me about, like, how friendly is your mother with this co-worker? Oh, she was laughing when they were swimming in the creek. Oh, really? And he just became really silent. But my mother is the one who demanded the divorce, and the thing was, the adulterer didn't leave his wife for my mother. My mother was totally devastated, and eventually, it didn't take too long, she got breast cancer. One of her breasts had to be chopped off because she was grieving so much. She said, oh, the reason I got cancer is I felt so sorry for myself. I'm sure, Mother, I'm sure you felt sorry for yourself. What about me? What about how you cut off my connection to my best friend, who eventually I think became a nurse, is now probably retired and living high off the hog. And she might be like some old pudgy lady. Maybe she looks young and thin, but, you know, I don't know. If I see her in the store, would I recognize her? It's been so long. Like, Mother, you did the worst thing that anybody could do to anybody. You took all my emotional connections away from me, which you had done previously in early childhood. But then when you divorced my father, and Hannah Cass was a writer for a Christian magazine, and a few years ago, maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I tried to contact the magazine. I said, Hannah Cass was my friend. She used to ride the school bus with me. Could you please put me in touch with her? That's when we had email. They said, well, we're not really sure that you really knew Hannah Cass. I mean, who's named Hannah Cass? Only Hannah Cass is named Hannah Cass. Mercy on my soul, Jesus. But today, you know, I was in the parking lot. I said, folks, this is the thing. You know, sometimes we get our just desserts. There were many times when I was in school and people were bullied and I didn't open my mouth. I never defended anybody who was bullied, even in summer camp. Even in college, my roommate, you know, because I so wanted to be accepted by my roommate, Kelly, the Norwegian. She, you know, it's a very long story, but we had to wait in line for our dinner in the dorm. The bunny's making a lot of noise. He's just ripping up the box. Don't pay attention to him. And she started making fun of this girl in front of me who I knew was Jewish because we had a conversation previously. And I didn't even open my mouth to defend her. I just laughed. And I said, oh, yeah, she's Jewish. I don't believe that I just, God, you know, I deserve everything I got in life. How terrible. What a terrible person. But I was conditioned not to defend the person being bullied. Now, how many times was I bullied? It started when I was 4 years old and I had to walk really basically through a ghetto to get to the high school with the lady, Miss Grizzlepuss, with her granny glasses. Actually, it's really true. She had the granny. She was just the meanest. She was the meanest kindergarten teacher anybody ever knew. And also Mrs. Algio was a very mean first grade teacher. I want you to know that. Mrs. Algio was like algae to me. She was just so fucking mean. I don't know how you treat a little girl so cruelly unless you just enjoy being cruel to people. And I'm only like 4, 5, 6 years old, folks. Come on now. Come on. Let's go, baby. And because time after time I was subjected to cruelty, I started ignoring it when my classmates would be cruel to my own classmates, or even upperclassmen. You know what I'm saying about upperclassmen? Boys, it was almost always boys, but sometimes it was girls in my own class. They would make fun of and mock my fellow females in the class. And I didn't open my mouth because I didn't want to be... I thought, listen, if they're going to mock them when they're not even doing anything wrong, if I step up in my own tiny little brain, I said, listen, if I try to defend them, then they're going to start mocking me and make my life a living hell too. So I kept my mouth shut. If that's your mechanism for surviving in life, mocking people and belittling people, even your own children, many times my father would berate me and call me fat, lazy, and ugly and stupid, you know. But then he would praise me at other times, saying, oh, you're so intelligent. You're wonderful at English. I don't know how your brain doesn't break in half when that happens. Because my dad he could be my biggest ally. He could be my worst threat. And my mother was always like, standoffish. Well, she gets what she deserved. He appreciated her too much. Now she's going to be called bad, horrible names. And I just have to stand by and smile and just not do anything. Like, oh, I'm not hearing what's happening. I'm not hearing the emotional abuse. I'm not hearing the verbal abuse. Now I realize that I need to step up when somebody, like a father, for example, says something inappropriate, or they have an inappropriate tone in their voice. I should speak up and say, that's not a Christian way to talk. That's all I had to do. It's very interesting, folks. We want to talk about racism. You can talk about racism, but there's racism within the Caucasian community. There's racism within the Caucasian community. That's what I said. Do I have to repeat myself again? I remember these two platinum blonde girls. I mean, their hair was naturally platinum blonde, like white blonde. And they were relentlessly mocked and made fun of by females, not by males, but by females. In fact, there was a girl that was, I think of another lady. She's not a girl anymore. She was classified as, what do you want to say? I don't want to say it, but it's not a nice word. It starts with an S. The thing was, she only had two options in her life. She had to be a mean bully, or she had to become an S. All those times I should have maybe even stood up for my brother when my mother basically was a very passive person. At home, 99% of the time that woman was soused. Well, that's the truth about Kathy. You want to know the truth? I want to know the truth. She would never even take me on shopping trips. She felt guilty after the divorce, and we bought a lot of stuff, but she would never, even when I was married, I said, Mom, do you want to go shopping together? I don't know, I'm not interested in shopping. Turns out she spends like thousands of dollars at Bueller's in Ashland. She doesn't care about me. She didn't give a goddamn fuck about me. And that's my mother. I'm sorry, but it's true. My dad would get so annoyed with my younger brother, who eventually committed suicide. He called him, you little MFer, and he would shout at him at the top of his lungs. And he would turn to me with a twinkle in his eye, mother's favorite. I'm like, Dad, you didn't mean mother's favorite. You meant MFer. I know what you meant. because my dad was in the Marines and his dad was mean to him, and so it goes, and so it goes, like Linda Ellerby. Don't think I wasn't watching TV back in the day. I was trying to understand how I could be successful. As ugly, fat, and pudgy and brunette as I was, I thought, I don't want to be like Linda. My dad makes fun of Linda Ellerby, so I don't want to be like Linda Ellerby. The thing is, folks, we're Generation X. We understand all of this. Some people might use terminology that we don't understand, but I think Generation X generally understands me. Are you clueless like Alicia Silverstone? Are you truly clueless? Like you don't understand? The reason why you're not accepted is because you don't defend other people that are being bullied and harassed and called mean names. Oh, really? I should really try to speak up and say, hey, that's not a Christian thing to say. At least we could start with that. You don't have to shout at people the way your father shouted at people. And your mother was so extremely passive and such a drunkard. What could you do? Am I supposed to repeat this? When I dated an African man who was a Christian, let it be known he was a little bit too old for me. And I was only 17 or 18 when he met me. And he courted me. And he was at least 10 years older than I was. I was so shocked. This man was going to a Christian university. He had aptitude. He spoke, I don't know, 4 or 5 languages, which I can't say that I speak any other language other than English. Ich bin Berliner. I speak a bit of German, yeah. Ich bin Berliner. My dad confronted me one day. I was dating him in college. My dad even met the guy. Now, the guy was not impressive, in terms of his physical appearance. He was kind of short. He was a bit shorter than I was. And my dad was polite to him, but when we got back home, he said, I'll never accept him, because he's black. I'm not saying that that man was a good man. I'm not saying that he was the perfect model Christian. But for my dad to, that's the thing that broke our relationship apart. He knew for sure that my dad is no kind of simpering Mennonite. In fact, he doesn't even believe in God necessarily. He just believes in Western culture, and he doesn't like you, and he doesn't want you to have anything to do with his daughter. Now, listen, if the tall blonde men could have been interested in me, I would have dated the tall blonde men, but he was the first. Well, a few people were interested in me in high school. They were interested in me. But they were kind of nerdy and creepy, but, that's the sort of person I seem to attract. That's okay, right? It's all right, just admit it. My dad just... I think the boyfriend assumed because I'm attending a Mennonite college that my dad is this big, huge Christian, when in fact my dad hates Jesus with his entire being. I think so. However, I might be incorrect on that point. He never confessed his faith in Jesus Christ. Maybe that's why my mother divorced him, because he just couldn't get with the program. He wouldn't go to church with her. He would only go to church on, Easter and Christmas. In fact, he had a real hostility toward Yahweh, my father did. It's really a sad thing. I don't know. As a child, you feel responsible for it. And then my brother falls victim to the same syndrome. It's like if you believe in Jesus, then you wouldn't kill yourself, right? You wouldn't become like a heavy metal Satanist. Nevertheless, so I have to say, this is the thing. This is the thing. This is sort of the point that needs to stick with you. My dear friends, when fathers are absent or ineffective, society goes down. Western society. Falco made a track called Männer des Westens. I was trying to learn German, but it's Viennese, everything like that. Männer des Westens. And so it sounds like he's criticizing Western men. These people from other countries, they're very good about money and being very canny, but they don't know about moral values. They don't know it's wrong to lust after a 6-year-old little blonde girl. That's why I was warning the lady in the parking lot. I had to do it. I mean, he's so polite to her, and he's like, not very polite to me. Well, I understand why I'm not a 6-year-old little girl with platinum blonde hair. You people are sick motherfuckers. You need to get out of our country before you destroy it entirely. And that's all I have to say. Adios.